In the endless darkness of space, countless stars flicker like distant beacons, scattered across the black canvas of the cosmos. Amid this vast emptiness, a solitary ship gleams softly, its hull shimmering with a pale, almost otherworldly light. This is the Vanguard, Earth's first true explorer venturing beyond the familiar reaches of our solar system. Though small and unassuming compared to the colossal giants that roam these stars, the Vanguard carries the hopes and dreams of humanity. Its sleek frame pulses gently with the hum of advanced technology, quietly breaking the silence of the void as it surges forward on its mysterious journey. Yet beyond the safety of home, where silence should reign, a whisper of something ancient stirs a presence long hidden but powerful beyond measure. A galactic empire, one that has held dominion over countless worlds for 3,000 years, watches silently, unaware that a spark has begun to glow in the darkness, one that may soon challenge their rule. This is no ordinary tale of starships and battle. It is a story of courage that burns bright against the cold of space, of sharp minds defying impossible odds, and of rules rewritten by those brave enough to break them. Here begins the journey of humanity into the vast unknown, where every heartbeat echoes with the promise of discovery and the shadow of destiny. For 3 long weeks, the Vanguard had slipped silently through the endless blackness, propelled by the steady, humming pulse of new technology, fresh, fragile, and untested. Outside the thick viewing ports, the stars stretched endlessly, cold and distant, like ancient sentinels watching silently from the void, indifferent to the small human vessel daring to traverse their realm. The crew had prepared themselves for vast emptiness, a silent universe where only the faint glow of far-off suns and the slow drift of cosmic dust marked their lonely passage. They had expected solitude, quiet, and the comforting certainty that came with the unknown. But that quiet was shattered. Without warning, a sudden pulse flickered across the ship's instruments, a soft, eerie whisper that grew rapidly, transforming into something immense, something unmistakably alive lurking in the darkness beyond. Shapes began to take form on the sensor displays, immense structures that defied all logic, their edges sharp and perfect, as if crafted by minds so advanced they belonged to legends. These colossal forms loomed like monoliths carved by the universe itself, casting an unsettling shadow across the emptiness. Close to these vast constructs, strange ships moved with silent purpose, sleek, swift shadows weaving through the space between the giants, their presence cold and calculated. Their movements were fluid, deliberate, as if every maneuver was part of a grand design, and their silent approach cast a deep, chilling shadow over the fragile glow of the Vanguard. In the midst of the boundless void, the tiny human vessel suddenly felt unbearably exposed, a flicker of light surrounded by immense, unknowable darkness. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, the tension thickening the air. Captain Arlen Keene stood rooted by the front viewport, eyes fixed on the glowing star charts that now seemed to pale beside the unnatural shapes looming before them. A cold weight settled deep in his chest, a gnawing certainty that this was no ordinary stretch of space. This was something far older, far greater and far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Amid the silence, a whisper of wonder stirred. What secrets lay hidden behind those colossal structures? Were these the first signs of a new civilization, or echoes of mysteries older than time itself? The unknown stretched out before them, vast and terrifying, and the Vanguard was no longer just an explorer. It was a traveler crossing the threshold of destiny itself. Captain Arlen Keene stood rigid at the forefront of the bridge, his gaze locked tightly onto the glowing star charts that flickered before him. Each line and dot on the display traced unknown paths, routes that no human had ever dared to chart. A heavy weight pressed deep within his chest, cold and unfamiliar, as if the vastness itself had reached inside him and grasped his very soul. They had not planned to venture this far, not into this place where the rules of the universe seemed to twist and bend. This was no empty, desolate void. It was something far older, something ancient, an ancient realm ruled by unseen powers vast beyond comprehension, forces that had lingered silently in the dark for eons. Around him, the crew shared in the same silent tension. The air was thick with unspoken fear and awe. Breaths were held as if even the slightest exhale might shatter the fragile stillness. Hearts beat faster, a wild rhythm echoing the electric mixture of wonder and dread that danced precariously through the room. The vanguard was no longer the master of its fate, it had become a fragile visitor, stepping cautiously into a domain older and more powerful than anyone had ever imagined. What lay beyond those towering, impossible shapes? Their colossal forms loomed like forgotten giants rising from the abyss, mysteries carved in shadow and light. Were these the first signs of another civilization, a cosmic beacon reaching out from the dark? Or was it something far stranger still, an echo from the depths of the universe itself, secrets whispered long before humanity had ever taken its first breath? The answers lay just beyond the edge of understanding, hidden within the silent expanse where curiosity met the unknown, and destiny waited patiently to be claimed. A flicker of doubt briefly passed through the room, like a shadow crossing a sunlit path, stirring unease among the crew. Yet beneath that fleeting uncertainty burned a steady, unwavering flame, an unyielding courage forged in the crucible of humanity's fierce will to face the unknown. This was no longer a simple mission of distant exploration or scientific curiosity. The moment had transformed into something far greater, a moment of survival, a crossroads where fate and destiny converged after eons spent waiting silently among the stars. The vanguard itself seemed to respond, the gentle hum of its engines and systems filling the bridge with a quiet, rhythmic heartbeat. It was as if the ship breathed a solemn promise into the air, whispering assurance to all aboard. Whatever waited beyond the looming shadows, whether friend or foe, mystery or menace, humanity would meet it not with trembling fear or hesitation, but with fierce intelligence and an unbreakable spirit. There was strength in that promise, a strength that transcended the fragile physical form of the ship or the vast void that surrounded them. It was the strength of minds sharpened by challenge, hearts fortified by resilience, and souls ignited by a relentless desire to endure and to thrive. Together, they stood on the edge of the unknown, ready to write the next chapter of their story, not as victims of the vast cosmos, but as its fearless explorers and unyielding champions. Beneath the cold, unyielding steel of the Imperial Command Center, the air was thick with a weighty, silent authority that seemed to settle into every corner of the vast chamber. Endless holographic star charts floated like ghostly constellations, each flickering with streams of data that traced the intricate web of control the Empire held, millions of worlds bound tightly beneath its iron fist. The room pulsed with quiet energy, the hum of machines blending with the invisible tension of centuries-old power. At the heart of this imposing fortress of command sat Admiral Korath Malvak, a towering figure carved from decades of unbroken authority and relentless warfare. His deep blue skin was etched with faint scars, subtle yet unmistakable, each one a testament to battles fought and won, a history written in blood and steel. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the swirling stars before him with the practiced calm of a man who had faced countless threats and emerged victorious. For more than 3,000 years, the Empire had stretched its vast reach across the galaxy like an unbreakable shadow, its presence felt in every system and star. Within these steel walls, certainty was low, rebellions were snuffed out before they could ignite, rivals crushed with overwhelming force and cold efficiency. The stars themselves bowed to Imperial command, their light dimmed beneath the oppressive weight of dominion that pressed down on every corner of existence. Here, in this bastion of control, the future was mapped with precision and the past honored with ruthless pride. Every decision carried the weight of millennia, every command echoed the unshakable belief that the Empire's rule was eternal. When the first sensor reports flickered quietly into the chamber, alerts of a small, unknown vessel drifting just beyond their borders, Admiral Korath Malvak barely spared the blip a passing thought. In his long years of command, such sightings were routine, smuggling craft, desperate traders, or renegades skirting imperial control. To him, this was nothing more than a petty rogue hiding in the dark, avoiding taxes and patrols, a minor irritation easily ignored amidst the vast, unending tide of space. His four-fingered hand swept dismissively through the air, brushing away the concern like a fly buzzing too close to his face. The young lieutenant who had delivered the report lowered his nervous eyes, his pulse quickened by the weight of the admiral's indifference, and retreated silently back into the depths of the command center. Korath returned his gaze to the endless star charts, settled once more into the steady rhythm of his eternal duties. But the unknown ship was no fleeting ghost meant to be brushed aside. It lingered on the sensors, elusive yet persistent, like a shadow that refused to fade. Its presence grew steadily, shifting from trivial to troubling, and the calm certainty that had ruled the chamber began to waver, ever so slightly. As new reports flowed in, each one more unsettling than the last, the room's atmosphere shifted from confident control to cautious uncertainty. The small vessel displayed impossible maneuvers, twisting and darting through space with a grace and speed no Imperial craft had ever matched. Time and again, it slipped past patrols, evading capture with an uncanny precision that defied all known tactics and technology. Whispers of disbelief passed between officers. This was no ordinary ship. Its technology was unlike anything the Empire had ever faced, a sleek design both swift and purposeful, challenging the very foundations of Imperial dominance built over centuries. The vessel's movements were calculated, almost deliberate, as if guided by a mind far sharper than any machine. Empires pride themselves on their walls of certainty, towering, thick, and seemingly impenetrable. Their power relies on unshakable order, crushing resistance before it rises, and maintaining control through overwhelming force. Yet history had shown that it is in the cracks, the unexpected flaws and overlooked weaknesses, where even the greatest empires fall. And now, in the silent depths of space, humanity was becoming that crack. Small, fragile, and seemingly insignificant amid the vast galactic might, humanity carried within it a spark, something new, unpredictable, and dangerously potent. A force born not of overwhelming power, but of cunning, resilience, and an unyielding will. This spark threatened to unravel ancient orders and shake the foundations of centuries-old rule. The air in the command chamber grew colder as the realization sank in. The Empire was facing something unlike any challenge before, a force that could not be crushed by. Korath's sharp gaze narrowed, his piercing eyes burning with the weight of centuries as his mind raced to comprehend the unprecedented threat before him. The galaxy had long bowed beneath his iron command, worlds bending and systems trembling at the mere mention of his name. Yet now, an unknown presence, a fragile, unexpected spark had dared to challenge that reign. It was unlike anything the Empire had faced before. This was no brute force assault, no sprawling rebellion to be crushed beneath overwhelming might. Instead, it was a subtle and relentless adversary, moving with unpredictable cunning and quiet defiance that unsettled even the most battle-hardened commanders. A heavy silence settled over the command chamber as the gravity of this reality sank in. No alarms blared, no frantic orders echoed, only the slow, steady pulse of tension thickening the air. Beneath that stillness, a storm was quietly gathering, one invisible yet deadly. It was a storm not of fire and explosions, but of shifting power and fragile alliances, a tempest ready to tear through the stars themselves. Korath felt it deep within his bones, a storm that threatened to unravel the carefully woven fabric of the Empire's dominion, to rend apart the very order that had held the galaxy in its cold grasp for millennia. The fate of countless worlds, of civilizations long forgotten and those yet to rise, now teetered on the edge of this gathering tempest. The cold light of distant suns bore silent witness as the galaxy held its breath, poised for the inevitable upheaval that would reshape the cosmos and the lives beneath their watchful gaze forever. The vast darkness of space seemed to hold its breath as the vanguard glided silently through the endless void, its sleek frame cutting through the stars with quiet purpose. The engines pulsed softly beneath the hull, steady and rhythmic, like the cautious heartbeat of a living creature navigating unfamiliar territory, each pulse a reminder of the fragile life aboard this tiny vessel adrift in a sea of endless night. Ahead, sharp silhouettes began to materialize, Imperial patrol ships emerging like ghostly hunters, their forms dark and menacing against the tapestry of distant suns. They moved with fluid precision, silent and relentless, embodying an ancient predator stalking its prey through the cold emptiness. Each maneuver was calculated, each advance deliberate, closing the distance with a chilling inevitability that left no room for escape. Inside the Vanguard, the atmosphere grew heavy with tension, thick as the silence that stretched between the stars. The jump drive, the crew's only hope for a sudden, desperate escape, rested dormant, its energy depleted from the last daring leap and needing precious hours to recharge. Time became their enemy. Every moment that passed tightened the invisible noose around them. Breaths were shallow, measured, as if too deep an inhale might betray their fear. Every heartbeat echoed loud and clear against the soft hum of the ship's systems, a constant reminder of their vulnerability. Trapped in an alien expanse, far from the familiar warmth of home, they faced the cold reality of their situation, surrounded by enemies whose intent was unmistakable, whose power threatened to extinguish their fragile light forever. The Vanguard was a small flicker of defiance against the vast shadow of the Empire's might, a single spark struggling to survive in a galaxy that had long forgotten mercy. Then, as if awakened by the very presence of danger, the Vanguard seemed to come alive. It twisted and darted through the endless darkness with breathtaking agility, moving with a fluid grace that belied its modest size and humble technology. Like a flickering flame caught in a sudden breeze, the ship wove effortlessly through the vast emptiness, slipping through the invisible grasp of tractor beams as easily as smoke slips through eager fingers. Each evasive maneuver was a daring stroke of survival, a silent declaration that this tiny vessel would not be taken without a fight. The Imperial pilots, battle-hardened veterans forged in the crucible of countless wars, found themselves confounded and disoriented. Their weapons fired with lethal precision, their tactics honed over centuries of conflict, yet here, against this small, unpredictable human ship, their experience unraveled. Every twist, every sudden turn of the Vanguard was a challenge, a silent taunt that shredded their carefully laid plans and sent ripples of confusion crashing through their ranks. The chase became a deadly dance, with the Vanguard always a step ahead, slipping through gaps no one else saw, turning threats into opportunities with cunning and speed. The hunters became the hunted, struggling to anticipate the moves of a foe who seemed to think in a language of survival and innovation all their own. In this vast, silent battlefield, the small human ship shone as a beacon of defiance, proof that sometimes, the smallest flame burns the brightest, and the fiercest will can outmatch even the most overwhelming force. Captain Arlen Keene stood firm on the bridge, his eyes blazing with fierce determination that seemed to burn brighter than the distant stars themselves. Around him, the modest ship hummed with the focused energy of a crew united by purpose and resolve. Though the Vanguard was small and its technology simple, pale in comparison to the sprawling might of the Empire's massive fleet, it carried a weapon far more powerful than any cannon or missile, the unbreakable will and razor-sharp minds of humanity. They fought not with overwhelming firepower or sheer numbers, but with cunning tactics, lightning speed, and an unyielding courage that refused to yield. Every maneuver was calculated, every decision a delicate balance between risk and survival. In this cosmic dance of hunter and hunted, a profound truth began to emerge: survival does not always belong to the strongest or the largest. Sometimes, it belongs to the smartest. To those who can outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast their foes. The Empire's long-held certainty that its dominance was unchallengeable began to crack like fragile ice beneath an unexpected weight. It was shaken by a species it had dismissed for centuries as insignificant, fragile, and inconsequential. The very foundations of their power trembled before a force born of human tenacity and ingenuity. With every daring move, the vanguard carved a bold path of defiance through the star-studded darkness, a beacon of relentless tenacity and bright hope shining defiantly against the vast silence. The universe itself seemed to watch in silent awe as humanity declared its arrival, not with the deafening roar of weapons or the blinding flash of explosions, but with a spark. A small, brilliant spark that held within it the potential to ignite the cosmos and reshape the fate of countless worlds. The vanguard drifted silently through the vast, oppressive silence of space, its course slowly converging on the distant orb of Zephyra. From this far away, the planet looked like a wounded jewel, its once radiant surface marred by deep scars of fire and destruction. Thick, choking clouds of smoke billowed upwards, blotting out the light of its broken cities, whose flickering lights struggled against the relentless assault raining down from the cold expanse above. 3 immense Imperial warships hung like dark titans in the planet's orbit, their vast shadows stretching across Zephyra's battered surface. From these looming behemoths, beams of destructive energy cut through the atmosphere with brutal precision, slamming into buildings and shattering what remained of streets that once echoed with laughter and life. The devastation was methodical, cold, and unforgiving, an unrelenting punishment delivered from the void. Within the vanguard, the heavy silence was broken only by the steady, somber reports of Lieutenant Selene Mora. Her voice was calm but carried the unbearable weight of the destruction unfolding beneath them. "Captain, the Imperials are striking everywhere. Homes, markets, places where families once gathered, they are not sparing the innocent." Captain Arlen Keen's jaw tightened as he absorbed the grim news. This was no mere military operation, it was a calculated act of punishment, a brutal show of force meant to break the spirit of an entire world. The cold logic of the Empire was laid bare, dissent would be crushed without mercy, and fear would be the tool to bind Zephyra's people in submission. The crew exchanged glances, their faces reflecting a mixture of horror and growing resolve. Orders had been clear: no interference, no entanglement in alien conflicts. Yet as the images of burning cities and desperate cries for mercy filled their minds, the mission transformed. It was no longer about exploration or observation. It was about justice, about standing for those who could not defend themselves against the overwhelming might of the Empire. "Battle stations," Keen commanded, his voice steady but resolute. "We're going to show the Empire that humans don't stand by while innocents suffer. We fight not just for survival, but for what is right." Captain Arlen Keen's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing as they fixed on the flickering holographic projection hovering above the command console. The map displayed the ravaged cities of Zephyra in haunting detail, blazing fires devouring what remained of once thriving neighborhoods, crumbled buildings strewn like broken toys, and roads turned to ash beneath a relentless storm of destruction. This was no longer a battle fought between armies, it was a calculated act of punishment, a brutal, unyielding message sent to crush the spirit of a proud people who had dared to defy the Empire's insatiable demands. At the communications station, Kai Chen's fingers danced across the console as fragmented transmissions filtered in, piecing together a grim and painful story. His voice was low and measured, weighted with the sorrow of the truth. "The Zephyrans refused to meet the Empire's growing resource quotas," he explained softly, "and when they voiced their protest, the Empire labeled them as rebels. The response was swift and merciless, overwhelming force unleashed to break their will." The room grew heavy with a bitter knowledge of what lay before them, not a struggle for freedom or survival, but a cold exercise of domination. The Empire's grip was tightening with cruel efficiency, squeezing the life from Zephyra one strike at a time. The Vanguard's crew felt the sting of helplessness but also the spark of determination, the fierce resolve to stand against this injustice. Captain Keen straightened, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "We can't stand by and watch this happen. Our mission was to explore, but now it's clear we must act. We fight for more than ourselves. We fight for those who cannot. Keen stood motionless for a long, heavy moment, the silence inside the vanguard mirroring the cold fury rising deep within him. The ship's hum was the only sound steady, unyielding while his mind wrestled with the weight of command. His orders had been clear: avoid involvement. Earth was not yet ready to be pulled into the tangled web of alien conflicts and interstellar wars. Their mission was exploration, observation, not interference. But the stark images glowing before him told a different story. Innocent lives were caught in a merciless storm of fire and despair, their cries unheard across the void. Children's laughter replaced by the crackling of burning homes. Families torn apart beneath the cold beams of imperial wrath. The cruel reality shattered the walls of his restraint, forcing a choice that no commander wanted to face. His jaw clenched, and his voice steady yet fierce broke the suffocating quiet. Battle stations. Prepare to engage. The words echoed through the ship like a rallying cry. We will not stand by and watch the destruction of innocent lives. The Empire must know humanity will not turn a blind eye to suffering. Around him, the crews stirred, galvanized by their captain's resolve. The tension shifted from fear to fierce determination, each member ready to face the unknown for a cause greater than themselves. In this moment, the vanguard became more than a ship, it became a beacon of hope, a defiant stand against the darkness threatening to consume an innocent world. The vanguard became more than just a vessel that day, it transformed into a shining beacon of hope and defiance against overwhelming odds. It stood as a testament to humanity's true nature, not merely survivors in a harsh and indifferent universe, but fierce protectors of the weak, champions of justice, and bearers of light in the darkest corners of existence. This was not a fight born of recklessness or blind aggression, but a carefully measured stand, forged in compassion and unwavering resolve. Amid the endless expanse of space where shadows loom vast and silence reigns supreme, the flame of the human spirit burned brighter than ever. It flickered boldly against the cosmic darkness, lighting a path through uncertainty and fear with courage that refused to waver. The vanguard carried with it the honor of a species willing to risk everything to defend those who could not defend themselves. This was a stand for more than survival. It was a declaration that humanity would face the void not as isolated wanderers, but as guardians undaunted, united, and unbreakable. The stars watched silently as this small ship carried the weight of countless hopes, becoming a symbol that even in a vast, cold universe, compassion and courage could kindle a fire strong enough to change the course of destiny. The cold vastness of space suddenly erupted into a deadly symphony of motion and menace. 30 Imperial fighters surged forward like a shadowy swarm, sleek and lethal, their dark silhouettes cutting sharply against the star-speckled void. Each craft moved with terrifying precision, engines humming a low, ominous rhythm that sent a chill through the silence. They closed in relentlessly on the vanguard, a lone, fragile human vessel daring to defy a fleet built to annihilate any opposition. Inside the vanguard, the air crackled with electric tension and unwavering resolve. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, every heartbeat synchronized to the steady pulse of the ship's systems. Captain Arlen Keen's voice sliced through the charged atmosphere like a finely honed blade. Activate defense protocols Alpha through Delta. Target and disable their weapons, leave their ships intact. Precision is our advantage. The command ignited a flurry of activity as invisible energy shields shimmered into existence around the vanguard, cloaking it in a protective bubble that seemed to ripple with power. As the first volley of enemy fire hurtled toward them, the blast struck the shield and dissolved harmlessly, unable to breach the human vessel's defenses. Almost as if the vanguard itself responded to Captain Keen's command, the ship shimmered as a protective aura blossomed outward. Invisible energy shields enveloped the vessel, delicate yet formidable, forming a barrier that absorbed the first furious volley of enemy fire. Pulses of destructive energy slammed against this shield like relentless waves crashing against a hidden reef, each blast breaking apart and fading harmlessly, unable to penetrate the human fortress. Chief Engineer Jack's Calder's calm, steady voice cut through the tension. "Shields holding at 92%, Captain. No breaches detected." What unfolded next was far from chaotic. It was a precise choreography, a masterful display of human skill, coordination, and strategy honed through relentless training and unyielding resolve. The crew moved with surgical precision, each strike carefully aimed and timed to disable rather than destroy. Their focus was clear: cripple the enemy's engines and weapons systems, rendering them powerless without unnecessary destruction. One by one, the Imperial fighters faltered. Their engines sputtered, stuttering to a silent halt, leaving them adrift and helpless in the cold abyss. Their weapons blinked out, extinguished like dying stars, robbing them of the ability to fight back. Defeated yet unharmed, the fighters became drifting ghosts, silent witnesses to the unexpected cunning of a vessel they had once believed fragile and weak. The Vanguard carved a path not just through space, but through the assumptions and arrogance of an empire that had underestimated the fierce spirit and precise intellect of humanity. Commander Elena Voss stood on the bridge of the lead Imperial fighter carrier, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and fierce pride, but also something closer to disbelief. "They are not just fighting," she murmured, voice tight with tension. "They are outmaneuvering us at every turn. Disabling every fighter without destroying a single ship. It's uncanny." The precision, the control, it defied everything she had been trained to expect in combat. Across the vast battlefield, Imperial Commander Velric Daren's jaw clenched so tightly that the muscles twitched visibly beneath his skin. His face was set in a hard scowl of disbelief and frustration. "Impossible," he growled, voice low and dangerous. "Bring the main batteries to bear. And this foolishness before it spreads any further." But before the massive cannons aboard the Imperial warships could thunder to life, the Vanguard vanished like a shadow, melting into the darkness. It darted through the void with deadly grace, its movements a blur of calculated elegance and raw determination. Time and again, it struck with ruthless accuracy, weaving through the storm of enemy fire as if the void itself bent to its will. Each strike was a surgical blow aimed not at destruction, but at disabling the larger Imperial warships, the Dark Titans looming ominously above the burning world of Zephyra. Slowly, the relentless bombardment that had ravaged the planet began to falter. Weapon systems fell silent one by one, their deadly fires snuffed out by the precise and unyielding assaults of the human ship. The silence that settled over the battlefield was heavy, charged with the shock of a force that no one had expected, a small, fragile vessel standing tall against the Empire's might, reshaping the fate of the stars with every daring move. In that hushed, weighty moment, a profound truth radiated quietly through the stars, one that would echo across the cosmos for generations to come. Strength was not measured by towering size or the overwhelming roar of firepower, but by the keen edge of intelligence, the courage of heart, and the unbreakable will to persevere against impossible odds. The Vanguard, small and seemingly fragile amid the endless void, had transcended its physical form. It became a blazing symbol of human defiance, a fierce spark of hope that burned bright, unwavering, in the cold, indifferent expanse of space. This was more than a battle won or a fleet disrupted. It was a masterclass in courage and cunning, a testament to the indomitable spirit that defines humanity. The Empire, vast, ancient, and seemingly invincible, had been challenged not by overwhelming might or relentless armies, but by the sharp mind and fierce heart of a species determined to claim its place among the stars. The silent stars bore witness as a new force emerged from the shadows of obscurity, one that would not bow, not break, and not fade. The Vanguard's defiance was a beacon, a call to all who dreamed of freedom and justice, that even the smallest flame could ignite revolutions, reshape destinies, and illuminate the darkest corners of the galaxy. The Sentinel moved through the silent vastness, approaching the towering Imperial diplomatic station like a small boat nearing an ancient fortress. The station rose before them immense, cold, and gleaming, its architecture a testament to centuries of dominance. Tall spires pierced the blackness of space, their sharp edges casting deep shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of power and control. Every surface gleamed with a cold metal sheen, reflecting distant stars like the eyes of a sleeping giant watching over its domain. Ambassador Dorian Keel stepped cautiously alongside Captain Arlen Keene, each aware of the weight pressing down upon them. The air inside the station was thick with a metallic scent, a mingling of ancient stone and unseen machinery humming beneath the surface. Echoes of footsteps and whispered voices seemed to linger like ghosts, reminders of the countless rulers who had passed through these halls, wielding absolute authority. At the heart of this grand chamber sat Emperor Thalron Vyss, a figure both magnificent and unsettling. His skin shone like molten gold, smooth and flawless, catching the light with a strange, almost hypnotic glow. His eyes, sharp and vertical like a great predator's, pierced the humans before him with a curious intensity, weighing their every word, every movement. There was caution there, but also a flicker of something else, interest, perhaps, or the faintest trace of respect. How, the Emperor's voice cut through the stillness, smooth and deliberate, does a species with no history of contact develop such advanced technology? Technology capable of disabling 3 of my warships without causing destruction. Ambassador Keel lowered his gaze briefly, then met the Emperor's eyes with steady resolve. Your Majesty, humanity's survival has always depended on adaptation. We have faced hardship and scarcity, forcing us to innovate quickly and make the most of what little we have. Our progress is born from necessity and resilience. Captain Keene stepped forward, his voice calm but filled with conviction. Our ships are not built to dominate through size or overwhelming force. Instead, they are crafted for agility and precision. We value efficiency and careful calculation over brute strength. This approach has allowed us to stand against threats much greater than ourselves. A heavy silence settled over the chamber. The weight of ancient tradition pressed down on the new ideas laid bare before the Emperor. For centuries, the Empire had ruled with iron certainty, its power unquestioned, its ways unchallenged. Now, these humans brought a different perspective, one that hinted at change, at a new way of understanding strength and control. This was not merely a conversation of words but a clash of philosophies. Humanity was not there simply to plead or to fight, it was there to show that power need not be measured by destruction alone, that innovation and compassion could be forces just as formidable. In that moment, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. A new chapter was beginning, one written not with weapons, but with courage, wisdom, and the hope that even the oldest empires might one day learn new ways to rule. Within the quiet depths of the Sentinel, the secure communication center pulsed softly with a glow of countless data streams. Lieutenant Ilana Fenn sat motionless, her eyes sharp and unblinking as she scanned the endless flood of information flowing across her screens. The room was a sanctuary of order amid the chaos of the stars, a place where secrets were guarded and battles waged without a single weapon fired. Suddenly, a sharp alarm shattered the silence, piercing the calm with a sudden urgency. Ilana's fingers danced over the controls, her voice steady but tinged with warning. Captain, we're detecting unauthorized attempts to access our most sensitive systems, specifically our jump drive designs and technical specifications. The intrusion is coming directly from the Imperial diplomatic station. Captain Solara Morin's eyes hardened as she absorbed the news. Her face, usually calm and composed, tightened with a cold resolve. The very place they had come to negotiate with was now probing their defenses, seeking to unravel the secrets humanity had fought so hard to protect. Initiate counterintelligence protocols immediately, she commanded, voice low and unwavering. Do not simply block their access. Feed them false information, lead them down a twisted path. Let them chase shadows while we learn their every move. Like a symphony of invisible sentinels, the Sentinels' cyber defense systems sprang to life. Layers of encryption shifted and morphed, crafting intricate traps and decoys within the virtual realm. Every attempt by the Imperial hackers to penetrate their defenses was met with a carefully designed deception, false data woven so expertly it tangled and ensnared, turning the invaders' efforts into a maze from which there was no escape. Behind these screens, a silent war unfolded, not one of explosions or fire, but of minds locked in an invisible duel. Each block breach was a victory, each false lead a trap laid for the enemy. The humans had turned defense into offense, transforming the digital battlefield into a weapon of insight and control. In this realm of shadows and whispers, where light barely reached and information was the most precious commodity, humanity showed a strength few could match. They did not merely withstand the assault, they outwitted it, turning the Empire's own aggression against them. Here, in the hidden depths of space, a new kind of battle was fought, one where cunning and intellect reigned supreme. And in this battle of minds, humanity was proving to be a force unlike any the galaxy had seen before. The vast silence of space grew heavy with an unspoken dread as the mighty Imperial Dominion fleet surged relentlessly toward Earth. Warships countless in number stretched across the void, a dark tide flowing with cold purpose, their steel hulls gleaming faintly beneath the distant stars. The humans had long prepared for this inevitable confrontation, sharpening their minds and honing their technology. But no amount of preparation could ready the Empire for the extraordinary surprise awaiting them. Then, without warning, the fabric of space itself seemed to shudder and twist. Invisible forces rippled outward like storm clouds gathering unseen on a calm horizon. Localized gravity wells bloomed across the battlefield, silent, invisible snares erupting in the cosmic depths. These wells bent and warped space around the Imperial vessels, pulling and twisting their massive frames with unseen hands. Engines that once roared with unstoppable power sputtered, faltered, then died. Weapons systems, once deadly and precise, fell eerily silent, rendered useless against this strange and enigmatic force. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Korath Malvac stood tall, his usually commanding presence now shadowed by growing horror. His piercing eyes scanned the screens, each one confirming the terrible truth: his once invincible fleet was trapped, stranded like statues frozen in an invisible cage. His hands clenched into fists, the tension of frustration and fear warring deep within him. The Empire's greatest strength, the symbol of its dominance for centuries, was crumbling before his eyes, ensnared in a trap no one had foreseen. Suddenly, slicing through the stillness, a sleek human ship appeared, bold, purposeful, and unyielding amidst the immobilized giants. The Resolute moved with confident grace, its silhouette sharp and elegant against the backdrop of halted warships. From its bridge came a voice, clear and steady, carrying across the void like a beacon: "Admiral Malvac, this is Captain Arlen Keen of Earth. Our gravitational defenses are temporary and reversible. We seek peace but will defend our world." The message hung in a vast silence like both a challenge and a solemn promise. It was not an act of aggression but a declaration of resolve. Humanity had taken the very laws of physics, the invisible forces that made faster than light travel possible, and turned them into a shield and weapon. They wielded science not recklessly, but with meticulous precision, crafting a defense that could hold back even the mightiest fleet ever assembled in the galaxy. In that charged moment, the true spirit of humanity blazed bright, clever, resourceful, and fiercely protective of their home. The Empire, long accustomed to unquestioned dominance, had been caught off guard. It was not overwhelming firepower that had challenged them, but a new kind of strength born of ingenuity and courage. The stars themselves seemed to whisper of change, as an ancient power faced the indomitable will of a species determined not just to survive, but to shape their destiny among the cosmos. The grand station drifted silently through the endless blackness of space, a colossal orb forged from gleaming metal and radiant lights that danced softly against the backdrop of distant stars. It moved in solemn orbit above Earth's shimmering blue-green surface, a silent sentinel watching over the planet's fragile beauty. Its towering spires and sweeping arches stretched like the ribs of some ancient cosmic leviathan, holding within a universe of stories yet to unfold. Inside the station's vast vaulted halls, beings from every corner of the galaxy had come together, a breathtaking mosaic of forms and colors, each more strange and wondrous than the last. Tall and slender figures with skin like molten silver stood beside stout creatures whose eyes glowed with inner fire. Tentacles and feathers, scales, and shimmering crystals adorned those who had traveled light years to be here. Each face told a story, worn with the weight of distant suns and the scars of countless battles, yet softened by the fragile hopes they carried. Their eyes flickered with a restless blend of anticipation and unease. Some shone bright with a fierce light of hope, eager for change and the promise of a new order. Others held shadows, fear of the unknown, of upheaval, of losing centuries of power and tradition. Between these faces hung the silent tension of worlds held in balance, the delicate threads of fate woven through every whispered word, every cautious glance. In this gathering, the fate of countless civilizations hung suspended, a fragile harmony resting on the power of speech and the courage to imagine a future beyond conquest and fear. The weight of the moment pressed upon all present, heavy and electric, as the galaxy waited to hear the voices that might change its destiny forever. Amid the sea of faces and alien voices, Ambassador Dorian Keel stood tall and unwavering, a solitary figure of calm resolve. His posture was firm, his presence commanding without arrogance. The heavy silence that blanketed the grand chamber seemed to part gently as his voice rose steady, clear, and purposeful, cutting through the tension like a soft breeze stirring the first fragile leaves before a brewing storm. He spoke not of weapons or conquest, but of a future unlike any the galaxy had known, a future where true strength was no longer measured by iron fists or endless cycles of war, but by respect among peoples, freedom to choose one's own path, and cooperation between worlds. His words painted a vision of diverse civilizations thriving side by side, no longer shackled by chains of conquest or ruled by fear, but bound together by delicate threads of fairness, trust, and mutual benefit. It was a vision that shattered the ancient pillars of the Empire's long-standing rule and wove instead a new tapestry, one of peace, unity, and shared destiny across the stars. Across the vast chamber, Emperor Thalron Vyss listened intently, his golden eyes narrowing as the flicker of curiosity battled with deep-rooted caution within his gaze. His regal presence commanded the room effortlessly, a living emblem of millennia-old traditions, proud and towering, yet bearing the invisible weight of the legacy he carried. "Your ships," he murmured, his voice low and sharp like a blade honed by centuries, "and your ideas, they challenge everything we have held true for centuries." The words hung in a charged air, echoing softly against the cold stone and metal, signaling that the old order might be facing a test unlike any before. A sudden wave of voices crashed through the chamber, rising and falling like a turbulent sea. Some delegates cried out in alarm, their words sharp and urgent, warning that tearing down the Empire's iron grip would unleash chaos, an uncontrollable storm that could scatter worlds into endless anarchy. Their fears clung to every syllable, shadows cast by centuries of order and control they dared not lose. Without the Empire's strength, they warned, there will be only disorder and ruin. But others spoke with fierce and fiery hope, their voices bright beacons cutting through the tension. They saw in humanity's courage not a threat, but a spark, a flicker of light that could guide the galaxy from the long night of oppression into a new dawn of freedom and cooperation. Their words wove threads of possibility and renewal, daring to imagine a future where diverse worlds could rise together, not under chains, but in harmony. The chamber became a whirlwind of passion and conviction, a tangled tapestry of fear and faith, resistance, and renewal, each voice pulling at the fragile balance. Arguments flew like sparks in a storm, igniting both anger and hope as the assembly wrestled with the meaning of change. Then, as if summoned by the weight of their own struggle, the room fell into an almost reverent silence. The Emperor rose, his towering presence commanding stillness even from the most fervent dissenters. His eyes, glowing like molten gold, scanned the assembly with a calm intensity that silenced all but the softest breaths. His voice rang out, deep and resonant, filling every corner of the vast chamber like a powerful tide. Humans have shown us a new path not through conquest or force, but through innovation and determination. Perhaps, after centuries beneath the long shadow of old empires, it is time to embrace a new era. His words hung heavy in the still air, carrying the weight of history and the promise of transformation. In that moment, the galaxies seemed to pause, a fragile heartbeat between the old and the new, between the fading of an era and the dawn of something yet unseen. His words lingered in the air like a whispered promise, soft yet powerful, reverberating gently against the cold stone walls of the ancient chamber. The weight of those simple truths settled over the assembly like a quiet storm, shaking the very foundations of the galaxy itself. For centuries, power had been measured by the thunderous roar of weapons and the heavy shadow cast by empires spanning countless worlds. But now, something new stirred, a gentler, deeper strength. It was the strength of ideas, delicate yet unbreakable. The courage to imagine a future that dared to break free from the chains of the past. The boldness to seek a path not paved with conquest or fear, but with understanding, respect, and unity. In that suspended moment, the old ways wavered, as if the galaxy itself paused to listen, to feel the pulse of change humming beneath the stars. Humanity was no longer a distant, forgotten species lost among billions of stars. It had become a beacon, a shining light cutting through the vast cosmic darkness. A living testament to the idea that even the oldest and most powerful forces could be reshaped. That hope, courage, and an unyielding will could bend the course of history and forge a better tomorrow. The silence that followed was heavy and profound. The galaxy held its breath, balanced on the fragile edge of a new dawn, waiting for what would come next, an era born not of iron and fire, but of hope and the unbreakable spirit of life reaching beyond the stars. The vastness of space stretched endlessly as Earth's defense fleet quietly gathered strength. Ships of all sizes, each crafted with care and purpose, hovered like guardians beneath the watchful stars. These vessels were not the largest in the galaxy, but they carried within them a spark of something far greater: human ingenuity, resilience, and the unyielding will to protect their home. The air aboard the fleet was charged with a mixture of hope and determination. Every crew member knew they stood at the edge of a new era, one shaped not by overwhelming force, but by intelligence and courage. These ships, smaller and faster, were designed to think, to adapt, and to face the unknown with sharp minds and brave hearts. Far beyond the reaches of Earth, the Galactic Empire, once untouchable and supreme, felt a tremor ripple through its ancient foundations. It was not the crash of weapons or the roar of battle that unsettled them, but the quiet power of a new idea. A force born from a distant, blue world that dared to challenge centuries of domination not with conquest, but with innovation. Earth was no longer just a tiny dot lost among the stars. It had become a beacon, a symbol that even in the darkest corners of the cosmos, change could take root. The story of the galaxy had been rewritten, and the future waited, wide open and full of possibilities. In that vast silence, humanity's voice echoed clearly: they were here, and they were ready. If this story of human courage and cleverness stirred something inside you, show your support by liking and subscribing to HFY Galaxies. We want to hear from you. What do you believe in the human spirit makes us so unstoppable? Is it our creativity, our will to survive, or something deeper? Share your thoughts in the comments and join the conversation. Together, We celebrate the power of ideas and the endless potential of humanity among the stars.